think it's helpful when thinking about Milwaukee County to take a step back to before the pandemic. So when we go back to the spring of 2019, Milwaukee County was one of the first in the nation to declare racism a public health crisis. And when the pandemic came along, it was no different. We saw the same sort of disparities that our community has seen in the past, but amplified through the pandemic.
So when we realized that COVID was arriving here in the county, we sat down with all the fire departments. There's 14 EMS agencies within the county, and we organized a plan really to respond to it. So we created some additional units to surge the field. So it was a pretty aggressive start from the get-go. And then our office also took on the data collection to really figure out where should we guide our resources next.
So we have access to a lot of rich, large, complex data sets here at the county, and we're able to turn those into visualizations that help us make decisions. But in order to do that, those visualizations really need to be understandable in an instant. When you look at a map or a graph, you need to understand the trend of what's happening in that particular community within the blink of an eye. And data can help us tell that story. Given the urgency and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in everyone's lives, we really decided from the outset to make whatever data that we presented visually accessible to everyone.
When we created the dashboard, we wanted the residents of Milwaukee County, as well as other stakeholders, to have the same exact information at their fingertips that the local leaders were using to make decisions. And so that meant that we had to be able to communicate through the dashboard in ways that spoke to people that aren't very comfortable with data and those that are very seasoned in looking at data.
When you jump on the dashboard, right away, you see relatively, what we hope are relatively simple, straightforward graphics that anybody can understand. But what you see there right away is you see the race and ethnicity breakdown, the rates for cases of COVID and for deaths from COVID. And that's been since the very beginning. We've had that data right there front and center.
The information that we're gathering in the dashboard for COVID response and beyond really allows us to make an informed decision about how we utilize resources and where needs are. So for me, I have a lot of passion for the city of Milwaukee, but I can take that emotional aspect out of it and really look at the data to say where is the greatest need. And when we talk about racial equity in Milwaukee County, one of the things that we really focus on is removing barriers to services. The need was so great in the inner city of Milwaukee, particularly the north side, but we also saw pockets in some of our southern suburban areas as well that needed attention.
As we were watching the numbers unfold and how they were geographically distributed across the county, that actually set the stage for the EVE model to be created. So EVE stands for Evaluating Vulnerability and Equity. And when we created this model, the goal was to measure the vaccination rate across all census tracts in the county with the backdrop of the CDC's Social Vulnerability Index.
So we looked at those orange census tracts, the most vulnerable and the least vaccinated. And so that combination is what we wanted to target. We've targeted that in a number of ways. We've targeted it through messaging. Another example would be our Vaccine Ambassador program.
We had a program called Healthy Homes, and that was an in-home vaccine program. And those who either physically could not leave their home, mentally couldn't leave their home, whatever the reason was, they preferred to receive the vaccine in-home. We would go to their residence and administer the vaccine, and that was really guided as well by data. I really just want to highlight the work that our data team did in collaboration with other partners to really inform not only the community but the state and change policy. The fact that the EVE model came out and we were able to go to the state and say, hey, we have a problem here, and we would like to open vaccine access to everyone within these top 10 most vulnerable zip codes with low vaccination rates, and they let us do that 2 weeks ahead of time. I think that really speaks volumes about the integrity of the work, the transparency involved, and really good practices from everyone that contributed to that project.